I'm Robin, and welcome to the Radical Reviews Show on the Lazor Flashback channel.
I don't know why exactly, but the 90s definitely had a thing for animal mascots. You had the Turtles, the Biker Mice from Mars, Animaniacs, Sonic, Earthworm Jim, Crash Bandicoot, and Star Fox, to name a few. Now, these are all based on some pretty cute animals, though. Then there are a few mascots that are based off of some pretty creepy animals. Like, okay, not that. No, that's kind of fucked up, but not that either. Ugh! Ew! That's gross! Also, I'm pretty sure these aren't even based off of real animals. I mean, this is just a zebra sausage. This kind of look like a worm, maybe? Is it based off a worm? And here is obviously this was based off of an elephant. I mean, look, that's an elephant in the purple. But the last one, those are just balls. No, I'm thinking about the oh-so-friendly possum. Yep, some guy apparently thought it would be a great idea to use this as an inspiration for a video game mascot. An animal that, when threatened, mimics the appearance of a dead animal by basically fainting and releasing a horrible stench of death.
Look at Plain Dead, did you see that?
Sounds great, huh? Well, actually it is, so joke's on you. So what game am I talking about?
I'm Possum!
No! Bad Possum! Bad!
I have two problems here. One, I don't know what your interpretation of awesome is, but I think that anyone who makes a statement saying that they are awesome would automatically become the definition of whatever the opposite of awesome is. That's a mouthful. And two, this isn't the game.
Here we are, Rocket Knight Adventures. First, let me just point out that this game suffers from what I like to call the Kirby Conundrum. You've probably heard about this before, where for some reason, everything released in the US needs to be serious and manly and fabulous. And that apparently means changing the cover art, usually just the face too. Now, Sparkster is a likable character who's usually seen smiling in-game, so why they decided to portray him as this serious, almost angry dude goes beyond me. I guess they thought it would make the game appeal to a wider audience. I don't know about you, but I don't think I'd pass up a game based only on the facial expression of the character on the front. Well, okay, maybe if it looked like he was taking a shit, then I'd think twice, but smiling? Yeah, I don't see the problem. This was the case with just about every Kirby game released in the States, and Rocket Knight Adventures got the same treatment.
Us European folks are pussies though, so we got the happy, friendly Sparkster, just like the Japanese version.
Rocket Knight Adventures was developed and published by Konami back in 1993 and received great reviews from just about everyone. And rightfully so. The designer Nobuya Nakasato is the same guy who worked on many games in the Contra series, including Contra 3, which is one of my favorite games on the SNES. Contributing to the music department is Michiru Yamane, who has worked on just about every Castlevania game since Bloodlines, so you can expect to hear some pretty sweet tunes coming from your TV. This is a game that, in my opinion, plays a huge part in defining a whole console, being the Mega Drive obviously, or the Genesis if you prefer. Why? Well, that's what I'm here to talk about, isn't it? Let's pop this magnificent piece of video game history in and get started. Believe it or not, there's actually some pretty elaborate work put into the backstory of this game. I'm not gonna delve too deep into that right now, but I'm just saying that this could actually make a pretty cool cartoon if they ever considered making one. There is a short comic book story based on the franchise called Sparkster Last of the Rocket Knights, written by Nigel Kitching, the same guy who wrote Sonic the Comic. It was actually featured in one of the Sonic issues, and better yet, Kitching even wanted to continue the series. Sadly, Konami ditched the idea cause they apparently didn't give a shit. I guess they had other plans for the characters, such as pod racer cameos. Yeah. Shame on you, Konami. Shame on you. In Rocket Knight Adventures, you control Sparkster, knight and protector of the Kingdom of Sebulos. Starting off the game, our hero is on his way to the castle, and at the end of the first stage, the story kicks off with the antagonist Axel Gear kidnapping the princess.
Yeah, I know that's like the biggest cliche ever when it comes to video games. But then again, there is some thought behind the kidnapping.
Axel is part of a group called the Black Knights and is also the assistant of Emperor Devilgus, leader of the Imperial Army, a dude who apparently goes to war with other countries and even planets with no ultimate goal. What a dick, right? Anyways, Axel is out to steal a key that will open a seal which hides a large ship called the Pigstar. He kidnaps the king's daughter and uses her as a way of blackmailing him to get the key. Twist is, the princess is actually the only one who knows the location of the key, which Axel is unaware of at this point. To be honest, little to none of this information gets through to the player though, as there's no text in any of the cutscenes. So the story according to what you see on screen plays out just like any other basic cliché, which is a shame. The illustrations are great though, and you get the idea of what's going on. I just wish more of the story came through. Okay, so let's take a look at some gameplay, shall we? Rocket Knight Adventures plays very much like your typical platformer, and it does so with very tight controls. There are a few things that makes the game stand out from every other run and jump game out there though. I'll get back to some more in-depth stuff later, but what I want to talk about right now is the most obvious thing. Sparkster has got a fucking jetpack! And it's not just a gimmick either. In certain places, you have to take advantage of this to get any further. It's an essential part of the entire experience, and the game lets you know that from the very first stage. It's a great balance between wanting to use it and having to use it, and it really helps showing off the game's incredibly intuitive level design. There are a total of 7 unique levels, and they're all built up by 3 to 4 sequences. The difficulty gradually increases very smoothly too. If you own a US copy, you can switch between the difficulties in the options menu right off the bat. But in the Japanese and European versions, you start off on the easiest and need to unlock the harder difficulties through beating the game on the previous ones. During your first playthrough, you're gonna die. A lot. Maybe not at first, but halfway through, you're gonna feel the rage. That's not necessarily a bad thing though, as the whole game isn't that long. A full playthrough knowing every level and boss fight shouldn't take more than about an hour and a half. You only have a set amount of extra lives and continues though, which depends on the difficulty. So if you look at the time it's gonna take on your first playthrough, you can easily bump that total up to about 3 hours. You'll also develop a personal attraction to apples and bananas. Just saying.
Finally, a game where there's actually a lot to say about the boss battles. Not only because they are very well done, but also because there are a lot of them. 16 to be precise, and that is not including the final boss.
Not a single one of these feels sloppy or unoriginal. They're all so damn detailed and thought out, and it's simply a joy to learn their attacks and kick their ass once you got everything down. Especially the last boss, but I'll get to him later. Every fight is made up of about 2 to 3 sequences, where they usually change forms. Take the Pig Cruiser as an example. Boss number 14. This guy first appears as a ship, then splits into 2, and lastly changes completely into this weird octopus thing. And they're all like this. It makes for a very rich and rewarding experience altogether. Even though there are quite a handful of bosses to fill the 2 to 3 hours of gameplay, they never feel repetitive, even on your second playthrough. Rocket Knight Adventures did so many things right, I can't help but be surprised by the fact that it didn't turn into a huge franchise. I mean, yeah, the story is a bit tame, but it's no worse than the Mario games, and those are more popular than Justin Bieber. Oh wait, I guess he's not that popular anymore. More popular than that Frozen movie? No, not that one. Seriously, I'm so sick and tired of hearing about this movie. Why can't people just... Hey! We are not going down that road. Don't get me wrong, I like the movie, but there is a limit to how much hype a man can take. The character design alone is fantastic. Just look at this guy. He's cool, dude. And he's got a jetpack. I mean, everyone knows that jetpacks takes you one step further. That's just common knowledge. Just take a look. Here's a photo of a guy without a jetpack. There's nothing special, right? Well, here's a photo of the same guy with a jetpack, and suddenly, he's cool, dude. Even the antagonist is well designed. Obviously, he looks pretty similar to Sparkster, but that's because he used to be a Rocket Knight back in the day. I can't really put my finger on it, but you can just tell that he's bad news. The 2D artwork and animations all look nothing short of fantastic, and it's never boring to look at the screen. There's constantly things going on. All the backgrounds look great too, and every level is unique and interesting in its own way. Not to mention that they're all different, which is such an accomplishment by the level designers. In one moment you're flying through the streets, and in the other you're jumping from cart to cart on the railroad high up in the mountains. I especially like this one right here, where you're trying to avoid the lava, but then all of a sudden you're totally dependent on it to use your reflection to get from platform to platform in an upside down perspective. I'm briefly gonna say a few things about the soundtrack, because there's really not much to say other than it's freaking awesome!
I'm awesome!
Hey, get the fuck out of here, you little shit! That's right, Konami has a really impressive track record when it comes to video game soundtracks. Just listen to this. They don't fuck around. This is easily a soundtrack I can listen to outside playing the game, which is great since the game itself has a sound test in the options menu where you can listen to all the tracks. This is just perfect for when I'm tidying up the gaming room. Although I will say that my favorite cleaning soundtrack will always remain the theme from Super Mario Land on the original Game Boy. What I like most about this game is probably what many people see as a negative thing, but I really like the fact that it's a relatively short game, because that means that I won't wear it out the first time around. I can tell you right now that I'll get back to this time and time again, it's just that good.
Coming up with positive thoughts on this game, that was an easy accomplishment. But finding any kind of negative sides, that really had me scratching my head and scraping the bottom of the barrel, to be honest. No, seriously. I don't see anything worth complaining about here. But I am here to nitpick, right? Okay, so there are a couple things that kind of frustrated me at times.
Remember when you get hit in Castlevania and your character gets knocked back? Yeah, Rocket Knight Adventures does the same thing. Only you get knocked back like half the screen.
What the fuck?
This is without a doubt the most annoying part of the game, though it's not as frustrating as in Castlevania. Also, some levels can get really hard. Now, don't get me wrong, I know this is the purpose, I mean, what are games without challenge? But I'm playing on easy, because you need to unlock the other difficulties. And still, some parts really pushed me to my limits. Like this one right here. To finish the stage, you need to run through these corridors back and forth while the screen moves up the entire time. That sounds like a decent challenge, shouldn't be too hard, right?
Hard.
I had so much trouble getting past this until I figured out a way that actually works.
Fuck!
It starts off pretty innocent, but then all of a sudden, you get to this one corridor where you don't have enough time to run through. So you use the jetpack, right? Well, the jetpack shoots you too far and bounces you back into the corridor and you'll get crushed. So what's the trick? Okay, so you do have to use the jetpack, but you need to wait for the exact right moment and release the button, bounce into the wall, which again makes you bounce off the wall behind you, and that leaves you with just enough power to get to the far end. But that's not all though. You need to pull off this bouncing move a couple more times, and then on the last corridor you skip the bouncing and go straight for the exit. It's frustrating as fuck, to say the least. Still, it's worth mentioning that in all fairness, it really is nothing but a good challenge. And when you get the timing down, it's not the hardest part of the game. It's just the fact that you're gonna waste a lot of extra lives figuring out the correct technique that made me label this as a negative feature.
Okay, so we've gotten to the point where I'm about to discuss the ending. So yeah, if you're ever in need of a spoiler alert, then this is pretty much it. You can click the button right here to skip the spoilers and get there yourself. Or you can just wait another 3 seconds and we'll get going. And time's up.
So, we've just beaten Axel in a robot boxing match. Yeah, trust me, it's pretty sweet. Axel manages to get away though, so the princess grants us, I want to say infinite rocket fuel? Somewhere along those lines. Again, no text, so I'm just guessing at this point. We fly into space in search for Axel and the Pigstar. After fighting our way through meteorites, robot skulls, and other bad guys, we finally get to the ship.
Now, look. You could have gotten away with ripping off Star Wars if you just named the station something else, like Pigface Station or Pigface Station with spikes. Yeah, okay, so those are probably not the best examples, but Pigstar? The large round space station? Yeah, that's just a little too similar to one of the most iconic trilogies in cinema history. There's a good chance it was intended though. I mean, just seems a little too obvious not to be, right?
I don't know about you, but I am pretty much ready to find a certain possum and kick his ass back to Asshole Academy. After a short walk, we meet the bastard and, well, let's just say he's not final boss material. Short story, we beat his ass and walk some more before we reach our final destination. Hell. Let me do the introductions here. Guys, this is the core, aka Annoying Prick, aka the hardest boss in the game. I can't even tell you how many times I've died trying to beat this guy. You need to learn every single move he makes through trial and error before you're really able to take him down. And I wouldn't want it any other way. First time playing through the game, I did terribly. I just couldn't get past him. The second time around, I learned every single move he makes and managed to get through after about 4 deaths. He really is that hard, but at the same time, I never felt cheated. Every time I died, it was my own damn fault for either falling out of sync with the rhythm or just not paying enough attention. After we beat the core, we leave the ship and head back to the kingdom. What happens next, do you ask? Well, fuck you, that's what happens. At least that's what the game says. Not literally, cause, you know, there's no text. But by giving us nothing but a shot of the escape pod falling down in a parachute, and then... Oh, so now you give us text. You fucks. Disappointing? Well, that's because you need to finish the game on hard to get the real ending, silly. After the core battle this time, there's another fight in space where you're in the escape pod fighting off this monstrosity. You eventually get past him and you fall down towards the kingdom in the escape pod with a parachute. Deja vu, right? Sparkster is suddenly outside the pod, and I guess he found the princess floating through the air, cause I distinctly remember she not being inside the pod earlier. She runs off to her father immediately, cause fuck the hero, right? Then he moonwalks out. He what? Yeah, he actually moonwalks away from them. This time we actually get the credits. Guess what? There's a sequel. I'm beginning to see a pattern here. Actually, there's 2. And it's a little confusing, so bear with me here. First off, there's Sparkster, Rocket Knight Adventures 2, a direct follow-up to the first game. It came out a year later in 1994 on the Mega Drive. For some reason, I really feel like the graphics took a hit this time. But that's up for debate. Although, you can't deny the fact that it kinda looks like a Sonic clone. But over to the confusing part. Another game was released that same year, and despite bearing the same name, minus the revealing subtitle, and the exact same box art, is a completely different game. Also, this one was released exclusively on the Super Nintendo, so that's yet another weird transition. This is the far more superior one in the art and sound department too. Can you imagine this happening today? Releasing 2 seemingly identical looking games, but delivering a completely different experience. Like, if you bought, say, Ghostbusters for the PS3, and then you play the PS2 version later and realize that they're 2 very different games. Oh wait, is this still going on? Not really. Well, not since the PS2 anyways, but it really wasn't that uncommon in the olden days of 8 and 16-bit consoles. Seeing as the 2 major names, being Nintendo and Sega, featured some pretty different hardware, they tackled games in different ways. Not like today, where consoles are basically just a restricted PC, meaning they work pretty much identically. So if third-party developers like Konami or Capcom wanted their games on both systems to reach more consumers, they often had to build the game from scratch twice. Licensed games usually went this route and got made by 2 or 3 separate developers who had the required experience for the different consoles, resulting in hugely different games with similar or identical box arts. Again, I haven't had the opportunity to try these out myself, but I'm sure they're both great additions to the franchise. There is one other game though. It came out years later in 2010 on the PlayStation Network, Xbox Live and Steam, simply titled Rocket Knight, and is actually a direct follow-up to Sparkster. It improved on the original by adding more to the gameplay in various ways, and it still maintains some very appealing visuals.
I remember playing this on my brother's PS3 when it came out, and I actually thought I had it on mine as well, but upon playing it the other day for this review, I discovered that it was just the demo. So, shit.
Well, I guess that'll have to wait for another day. Rocket Knight Adventures is such a great game that I truly believe it's a must-have for anyone who owns a Mega Drive or a Genesis. It's more than affordable too, which was kind of a surprise to me. I was sure this was gonna turn out to be one of those expensive because it's good games. But it really wasn't. I'm not saying that it's cheap, but it's definitely affordable. My complete copy cost me about 45 bucks, but a US copy is about $10 less or so. At this point in time and space anyways. As you probably know by now, I love this game, and I cannot recommend it enough. Buy, play, and enjoy.
Suck blood.
What am I reading, a fucking book? What, did I accidentally pick up some kind of video game audiobook hybrid to... This is a video game! I'm playing a fucking